Do you know about the X spot? Here I am walking home from gym class, and it reminded me to talk about that. I had an email about it on my Turned On podcast, but the reality is that it has a bunch of different names. It's basically the back of your cervix. And for some women, I remember I had an aunt, and she was only a few years older than me, and we would talk about this. And she said she'd go to the gynecologist, and it wasn't the speculum, it wasn't the stirrups, it wasn't anything. She could feel the scraping, and most women can't. But she would just she said that was awful. It was painful because she has a really sensitive cervix. Now, most women don't, which is a godsend during childbirth, right? The cervix feels like the end of your nose, little tiny spot. Menstrual flow comes down, sperm go up, and it opens to deliver a baby, and you dilate when you're in labor. But the reality is she was feeling that. And I don't, other women don't. It makes intercourse really sensitive. Anyway, there was a lot of books about it. Back in the early 90s, there was a book called The X Spot. And some people call it the anterior spot. Some people call it different things. But the truth is that if there's stimulation around it, some women have it, some women don't. G-spot's the way you're built. The G-spot is, again, that cluster of nerve endings, and it can be, some people think it's just the legs of the clitoris on both sides. I don't know. I think that there is a sponge and there's a whole cluster of nerve endings there that is a leftover prostate. Because if you do a transparency of male anatomy and female anatomy, you get the same spot, which is the prostate. And if you do, it's the male G-spot. It's that thing. So it's just a cluster of nerve endings, and we all start out as a glob of tissue, and it differentiates, right? CLIT becomes and then, you've got balls, and then they become, the inside part. So it's a process. I'm afraid to say some of these words here because I get banned. But the reality is we need to try different things that work. And I do this Nookie College, which is the crazy stuff that nobody's taught you. This isn't where your fallopian tubes are. This is what works, what's stimulating, how do we get there, what do we do, what's new. These are the craziest things you've ever heard of. That's my jam. I find out what is the craziest stuff you've never heard of, and I test it. I've been a therapist for a very long time, and you figure out what that looks like. So if you're interested in this, that's what I'm doing. NookieCollege.com, it started, or go check out my podcast, Turned On with Sue and John. And the truth is everybody should try it. So what you want to do is you want to go in as far as you can, pull back just slightly, and feel around. See if there's any way of sensitivity. Consider it a science experiment. It's hard to do it on yourself, but you can, and sometimes toys work. Sometimes people are way bendier than I am, and they can. Or you have a friend can, wash their hands and make sure they've trimmed their nails and they've washed them and they haven't been smoking, because the nicotine inside you is gross and gives you an infection. And just make sure that you're not going to catch a dirty, raggedy nail in there. And otherwise, fill your boots. It's about science experiments, everybody. I'm Sue. I go.